Welcome to In the Zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Late night on a Tuesday night. The water cooler talk has not cooled down. Everybody is still talking about 9.9 million people watching a women's game. That's right, a women's college basketball game. 9.9 million viewership. Can I share something with you? I've been a fan of the women's game for the longest, and people looked at me all crazy. But I also want to talk about some other things besides the women's game, the national championship between Iowa and LSU. What happened after the game, because that's still talked about. Here we are, late Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, and we're still talking about you can't see me and show me your ring. That's the interpretation I got from the gesture. What I want to talk about is something I posted on social media, Facebook. Who watched the HBCU All Star game on Sunday? It was free. The reason I say it was free because it was on CBS. You know, for people like me that don't have cable, it was free as opposed to paying for it. Yes, if you watch the women's national championship game, nothing against that. You paid for it because you have a cable subscription or Dish Network. But now I guess I see why come I got such a low response as to who watched the HBCU All Star game. 9.9 million people. I guess that's reason enough to say that that game was overlooked. Nothing against y'all watching that game, but to our people, the old people I came up under said it like this. It's a poor frog that won't praise its own pond. And yes, there is a narrative going around based on what one individual did as opposed to what another. But one of the things I decided I was going to do when I started podcasting was I was going to bring light and attention to our brothers and sisters in the HBCU realm. I've been fortunate enough to have a young lady who is coaching by the name of Laura Harper. Yes, she played at a PWI school, which is a predominantly white institution, but she's coaching at the HBCU level. Her way of giving back. So, since I know a lot of my compadres did not take in the HBCU All Star game, I want to just highlight or share article with you on the outcome of the game. If those of you who didn't see it, I'm going to tell you right now, you missed a very entertaining game. And it may take you a while to get around to it. It took you around to get around to women's sports. Like I said, I used to ask people, have you watched any WNBA? Who watches that? That game is not entertaining. The game is played under the rim. But let's fast forward the clock to April the 2nd, 2023. So much talk is going on about that. We haven't even talked about the men's national championship hardly. But I'll get back to that. The 2023 HBCU All Star game. Team Dick Barnett defeats Team Willis Reed in the second annual Hoops Showcase. The second annual HBCU All Star game delivered loads of highlights and drama Sunday in Houston as the two teams representing the nation's best players from historically black colleges and universities put on a show in a high-scoring affair. Team Barnett bested Team Reed and held off a late rally down the stretch, winning 113-99. Team Barnett's Nathaniel Pollard Jr. stole the show in the win and earning MVP honors in the All-Star game after posting a double-double in the win, turning in 10 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 assists. It was a great group of guys, Pollard said after the game. We came out of the locker room and said we want to play together. We all knew we had talent, but the way we wanted to win the game was to come together. As a matter of fact, got a little audio clip from that. At least I thought I did. Yes, I do have audio clip.
That's what he did to me. I was in mid-sentence too.
Basically, that was a play of Pollard going to the rim and throwing it down. Team Reed, named in honor of the late HBCU and NBA legend Willis Reed, who starred at Grambling State, featured players from the SWAC and the CIAA, and was coached by Dante Jackson of Grambling State and Jay Butler of Virginia Union. 4 different players from Team Reed finished double figures in scoring, led by Jordan Carl Nicholas, 26 points in defeat. Team Barnett was named in honor of Dick Barnett, a star once at Tennessee State, who went on to have an illustrious pro career. Team Barnett included players from the MEAC and the SIAC and independent ranks, including Pollard from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. Pollard was his team's 5th leading scorer, but paced the team in both offensive and defensive rebounds. After a relatively low scoring affair last season, Team Barnett and Team Reed combined for 212 points in a fun back-and-forth game that turned out to be a track meet. Team Barnett raced out to a 91-64 lead midway through the second half before Team Reed made a late push down the stretch. In the end, Team Barnett and its 17 made three-pointers was just enough to help down Team Reed in clinching the second ever HBCU All Star game. So there you have the recap of what happened in the HBCU All Star game between Team Dick Barnett and Team Willis Reed. Like I said, once again, if you missed it, you missed a treat. You missed an entertaining game. You missed some guys that were actually playing with scouts in front of them, trying to make it to that next level. Some may make it to the NBA. Some may make it on to the G League or the D League. Some will probably play their games overseas. But it's my hopes that in the years to come that this All-Star game will grow to the point to where they will have to have bigger venues because the support will be overwhelming. All I'm saying is don't sleep on these young men. You could be overlooking some diamonds in the rough. And I hope some of these young men do get a shot at an NBA contract. So, what I am going to do now, I am going to take a break right here. And when I come back, I'm going to get into the water cooler talk that is still being talked about. Like I say, the game was played on Sunday. And looking at social media, people just can't stop talking about it. All I'm going to say is, you can't see me. Welcome back to another segment of In the Zone with Anthony. And we're still talking about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reece. The narrative has been painted that when one did one thing, it was okay. But when another one did the same thing, she was criticized. So I'm going forward, but I'm going to move backwards, if that makes sense. Caitlin Clark says LSU's Angel Reece should never be criticized for taunting guests on the court. Angel Reece taunting of Caitlin Clark at the end of LSU's national title championship victory over Iowa has been the subject of much debate on social media since Sunday night. On Tuesday, Clark came to the defense of Reece. With under a minute remaining in the game, Reece celebrated by turning to Clark and doing the John Cena's "You can't see me" gesture before pointing at her ring finger. Clark herself broke out that same celebration against Louisville in the Elite Eight. However, Reece has received much more scrutiny for her actions. Just days after the national title game, Clark joined ESPN's Outside the Lines and defended Reece. Clark said trash talk is just part of basketball when players step between the lines. She says, "I don't think Angel should be criticized at all," Clark said. "No matter which way it goes, she should never be criticized for what she did." Hold it, though. This is Clark speaking. I've seen what's going on Facebook, in chat rooms, and it's like all out social media civil war. I would hate to see some of these people face to face. I imagine, if I can reference it like this, it would be like the anti and the pro-Trump protesters that were in New York. You would need 35,000 of New York's finest to keep it from escalating. Yes, I just said that. That's how the comments were. My question is, why should Caitlin Clark have to defend Angel Reece? Maybe that's the only voice people will listen to. But why should it take just her? Sometimes we as sports fans, we go just a little bit overboard to the point to where it becomes very toxic. In other words, while we're trying to criticize one for being classless, we keyboard warriors are the ones, in essence, that are classless. And in some cases, clueless. Because we're not in the heat of battle. Whereas trash talking is part of the game, it's only good for some but not good for others. There's an old saying that went like this: what's good for the geese is good for the gander. Now let that sink in for a little bit. Once again, she says, "I don't think Angel should be criticized at all," Clark said. "No matter which way it goes, she should never be criticized for what she did. I'm just one that competes, and she competed. I think everybody knew there was going to be a little trash talk. It's not just me and Angel. I don't think she should be criticized. Like I said, LSU deserves it. They played so well. Like I said, I'm a big fan of hers." Clark went on to say, trash talk is something that draws fans to sports. She said playing with emotion should always be encouraged because it adds to the entertainment value. The article goes on and says, "I think men have always had trash talk. I think that's what it always been. I think more and more people, as they turn on the game, are appreciating it for what it is. I'm just lucky enough that I get to play this game and have emotion and wear it on my sleeve. So does everybody else. That should never be torn down. That should never be criticized because I believe that's what makes this game so fun. That's what draws people to this game. That's what draws it to the pro level, to the college level, to the high school level. With Clark and Reece both returning for the 2023-24 season, fans might be in for more battles and trash talk between the two stars. I guess what I'm going to say is, leave these young ladies alone and let them be them. More importantly, stop drawing lines of division and seeds of discord. I can't wait to hear what Angel Reece has to say in response to what Caitlin Clark had to say. Be very interesting if they should cross paths again next year. Who's to say they're not following each other on Twitter, Instagram? One thing I do know, there's another thing that is really heating up the airwaves. Of course, it was shot down real quick. The fact that it was even a mention is baffling. And I'm getting ready to talk about that right now. Jill Biden, bless that woman. God bless her. She may have meant well. But no. Not going to happen. Angel Reece is not interested in Jill Biden's pitch to invite Iowa to White House alongside LSU. White House visits are traditionally for champions. Iowa is not a champion. LSU is. So when First Lady Jill Biden suggested on Monday that the White House invite both teams from Sunday's NCAA tournament final, Angel Reece was not interested. The LSU forward and Final Four most outstanding player made her thoughts clear on Twitter. At Reece10Angel posted a photo and had 3 side-face laughing emojis, a joke. Biden floated the idea during a speaking event in Denver on Monday, a day after she watched Reese's LSU team score a 102-85 win over Iowa in Dallas for the national championship. She told supporters in Denver that she'd run the idea by President Joe Biden. Says, "I know we'll have the champions come to the White House. We always do," Jill Biden said. "So we hope LSU will come. But you know, I'm going to tell Joe, I think Iowa should come too because they played such a good game." Yeah, that's funny. They got beat 102-85, but you say they played such a good game. Now, some refer to Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe. Jill, do me a favor. Wake your old tail up. Ain't nothing good about getting taken out to the woodshed. And if I can reference good old Jim Ross, ain't nothing good about getting taken out to the woodshed and getting beaten like a scalded dog in a national title game. Woman, you need to wake up. Joe might be just fine. White House visits by champions were once a given. That dynamic changed during the Donald Trump presidency and the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not clear if LSU will visit the Biden White House. The First Lady's invitation wasn't a formal one. Let me emphasize, wasn't a formal one. And it was essentially rescinded on Tuesday when her press secretary walked back those comments. Press Secretary for Joe Biden on her comments inviting Iowa's women's basketball team. Her comments in Colorado were intended to applaud the historic game and all women athletes. She looks forward to celebrating the LSU Tigers on their championship win at the White House. LSU head coach Kim Mulkey told reporters after the game that she would accept an invitation if one was extended. But Reece and teammate Alexis Morris floated another idea on Twitter after the First Lady's remarks, celebrating instead with former First Lady Michelle Obama. Once again, here is a tweet from Angel Reece at Reece10Angel. That's the tweet coming from Lex Luthor to at Alex Morris WBB. Michelle Obama, can we, LSU national champs, come celebrate our win at your house? There's no word from Michelle Obama or former president and noted basketball fan Barack Obama, who tweeted his congratulations to LSU on Sunday. Reece has remained in the headlines since Sunday's game for more than her MOP performance. She taunted, there they go, taunted Iowa star Caitlin Clark in the moments after the game, igniting social media criticism and subsequent debate over that criticism. At ESPN, Angel Reece hit Caitlin Clark with the "You Can't See Me." Let's see if I can pull up this audio real quick on this one.
After the game, finishing the way she started this season, LSU has been a confident group throughout, and Angel Reece.
Right, and Angel Reece let Caitlin Clark know. To my point, I see nothing wrong. It goes on and says the taunt she employed was frequently, let me put some emphasis on that, was frequently, while everybody is trying to spin a narrative a certain way, was frequently used by Clark when Clark was winning. Reece is black, Clark is white. Reece asked after the game why others didn't receive the same kind of criticism that she has. All year I was critiqued about who I was, Reece said. The narrative, I don't fit the narrative. I don't fit into the box that y'all want me to be in. I'm too hood. I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing. So this is for the girls that look like me, that's going to speak on for what they believe in. It's unapologetically you. And that's what I did it for tonight. I say, stand on what you believe. And that's what Angel Reece did. The suggestion of LSU sharing the championship stage with this vanquished title game opponent further fanned the flames of the conversation on Monday. And let me say, that conversation is still going on. Biden, meanwhile, spoke glowingly about Sunday's game in terms of Title IX, the 1972 law enacted to prohibit sex-based discrimination in educational settings. It was so exciting, wasn't it? Biden said. It was such a great game. I'm old enough that I remember when we got Title IX. Yes, I'm sure she is old enough. We fought so hard, right? We fought so hard. And look at where women's sports have come today. The White House didn't immediately respond to an Associated Press request on Monday on whether it would extend a formal invitation to Iowa. Here's what I can say since that article was released. Since then, the White House has said no. No invitation will be given to either runner-up, men or women. They put emphasis on that, but especially, no, Iowa will not be invited. Think about it. Who in second place has gotten an invite? Only invitation you got was to come up and receive your second place medal. The Buffalo Bills went to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. They lost 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Do you think they got an invitation to the White House? No. Let's go back in time. Michigan State, Magic Johnson. Indiana State, Larry Bird. You think Indiana State got an invite to the White House? No. And this is a tradition. Nate Burleson said it best. Some traditions do not need to be tampered with. Y'all know who Nate Burleson is? He's on that morning show on CBS. I applaud these women for getting women's basketball into the limelight. You're still talking about it. Whether it's positive or negative, you're still talking about it. But no, second place does not get the invitation to the White House. It's for champions. Not runner-up, but for the champions. So I'm glad the White House staff said no. Well, what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to take a break. And when I come back, I am going to wrap things up. Hope you're enjoying In the Zone. Yours truly, Anthony Smith. I will be right back, so don't you go nowhere. Welcome back to In the Zone with Anthony, as I get ready to wrap things up here, as the hour is definitely growing late, but it's well worth it. Got a nice little article here. Paul Finebaum, y'all know that guy, gives a harsh take on the UConn-San Diego State National Championship matchup. This year, the women's NCAA tournament may be a bigger spectacle than the men's, due to a dearth of brand names in the men's Final Four. Meanwhile, the women's featured all kinds of fascinating storylines. You had Caitlin Clark, perhaps the best women's scorer in recent memory, dragging Iowa to the title game over an undefeated and reigning champion South Carolina squad. After Clark's heroics allowed the Hawkeyes to outlast the Gamecocks, Kim Mulkey toppled them in the title game to win LSU's first title after just 2 years on the job. On the other hand, the men's Final Four simply fails to live up to that sort of hype or the level of excitement at last season's final games. Programs like Florida Atlantic and San Diego State aren't name brand schools with huge fan bases, and neither is Miami, at least in basketball. UConn is more of a long-standing power, but their fan base ain't quite that of a blue blood, and they're tucked away up a world away from Houston in New England. I also want to add to that real quick. Could it be that UConn men's basketball program is in the shadow of Gino Auriemma and the women's program? I've said this, and I'm going to continue to say it. They have 5 national championships, their men's program. At some point, you're going to have to put them up there with the likes of the Blue Bloods, with the Kentuckys, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, the UCLAs, the Kansas Jayhawks. Yes, I'm saying that. I'm sticking with it. I believe that until someone shows me differently. And then you got Dan Hurley as the coach. And he's going to get players in there. Not only is he going to get players in there, he's going to get the type of players that are not so as concerned about NIL money. They're there to play the game and win national championships. As long as Hurley is their coach, there's an opportunity for them to win multiple championships. I go on record as saying UConn not should be, but UConn is a blue blood. So given how the two tournaments unfolded, SEC Network analyst Paul Finebaum says he found himself more enthralled with the women's finals this time around. For folks on his station, LSU in Iowa, with the generational star Caitlin Clark, is a bigger draw than Connecticut and San Diego State. Here were his comments on the matter when he joined Greg McElroy and Cole Kubelik on their radio show. When the men's tournament started, of the two, we knew UConn was a good team. But I don't want to say they're off the radar, because if you're a basketball junkie, you know exactly what's going on there. But they're not the kind of brands we're used to. And again, we're in the South, so we're more focused on Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, schools like that. San Diego State is an intriguing story, though. And on the other hand, I really find what they've done with an experienced team, guys that have been around a long time, a fantastic story. I was more compelled by the women's tournament, though. And it had nothing to do with LSU winning. I would have bet my house, your house, and Cole's house on South Carolina winning. So we'd all be homeless today if it were up to me. Heck, Finebaum was so wired into the game that he was trying to check on Clark's stats as he was driving down the road. What I find interesting is yesterday I was coming home from somewhere after the game started, and not only was I checking the score, but I was going deeper into the box score to see how she was shooting, because I knew she had to have a fantastic game. So, not that that's a big deal, but I've never done anything quite like that before. What Paul Finebaum finds interesting is that he committed traffic violations to catch up on the latest from the women's national title game. The good news for local drivers is that it sounds like he won't care enough about San Diego State University UConn game to take his eyes off the road and look up Matt Bradley's stat line. Well, it's been another edition of In the Zone with Anthony. Hope you have enjoyed it. Please feel free to weigh in. Leave your comments. Tell me what you think about the content. I've enjoyed doing this. Always enjoy it. Always enjoy the feedback, especially when I post my links on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, wherever. I love to interact with people. I love talking with guests. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Maybe get you on as a guest as well too on my podcast. You do not, the good thing about it is you do not have to be a celebrity. I just enjoy interacting with people and hope that my content is enough to have you be a part of what I'm doing. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. This has been another edition of In the Zone with Anthony. I'm out.